Thank you so much for, again, having me again talk about a topic that's very important, not only for me, but I think for all of us here. Specifically in Turkey, it's a topic that is going to be a new direction, hopefully, for everyone working with people and individuals that have autism spectrum disorder. So I just want to give a little bit of a background with regards to where I come from as far as my perspective on the collaborative model that I will be presenting on. And it's important because everyone here in the room comes from a different history of learning in your education programs as well as in your home environment and the culture you live in. And it's important because it shapes the way you behave, it shapes how you interact with people, and it influences your direction as far as how you're thinking you're going to move forward. So I personally, over the past 33 years of my experience working with individuals with autism, developmental disabilities, and speech and language impairments, I come from a varied background, so I have a pre-medical degree, so I was involved in the neurophysiological components of the brain development, the body development, and I interacted with the science of pre-medical studies. Then I moved on and I got a master's in communication sciences disorders. And so that's like speech-language pathology. And in the program fosters and promotes interactions amongst many disciplines, like occupational therapists, physical therapists, psychologists, educators. And so I got the opportunity to work collaboratively in my internships and throughout my career thereafter as a speech-language pathologist in different facilities, hospitals, private settings, schools, rehabilitation centers, working collaboratively with other members of the health profession teams. I got to learn from them. They got to learn from me. I got to see things differently and incorporate the skills that I learned into my own sessions. And I further educated myself on that. Then I got a doctorate level of board certified behavior analyst, which really enriched my education with the tools and the technologies and the science of behavior and all the learning principles that we use to teach and instruct and grow and interact. And then I got another degree, doctoral degree in leadership and health science, which gave me a perspective of how organizations and clinics and schools and healthcare facilities need to work so that people that are in those organizations are working collaboratively and learning from one another to better the outcome of the patients and the clients they serve. So that's kind of like the background where I saw wonderful positive outcome, not only personally in my personal growth professionally, but also in the outcome of the clients and the patients that I worked with, a direct result of interacting, of collaborating, of learning from one another, from my colleagues of different professions. So to compound this, in the United States, throughout my years, I realized there was a gap. There was something missing in the education system that I felt was doing the best they could, but not enough to incorporate this comprehensive, collaborative approach using the science of behavior analysis to develop educational programs that are solid, that are effective, that are efficient to help the families and the children we serve. So I developed a school program, ASAP, a Step Ahead program, where the members of the organization of the school came from different disciplines. So I had speech-language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, teachers, BCBA, behavior techs, and families and educators, all involved under one roof. And we all created systems so that we can communicate effectively, so that we can learn and implement the strategies from different disciplines within one functional program of education. And the families were embedded, were in the program, part of the program. And that is what made it successful, because we, as therapists and as educators, as healthcare professionals, in the education and medical settings, we see our clients minimally compared to what they will be spending the time with their families at home in the community. And so to ensure that the transfer and the generalization of all the skills that we work so hard to teach happens, families, caregivers, whoever's in contact, the community, they need to be at the center of our programming and at the center of the care. And we need to train and hand over the implementation after careful teaching to all members. And that is the only way to be successful, to have successful outcome, to have generalized, meaningful, functional outcome. So this is the background that's really pulling and pushing this drive for interprofessional collaboration. However, what I'm going to show you now is not only my opinion, because my opinion is only mine, but I'm going to share with you the science behind collaboration. The science that is in support of an interprofessional collaboration. It is different than multidisciplinary collaboration. Multidiscipline means many disciplines. Interprofessional is more than that, in that it combines an interdisciplinary with a transdisciplinary. That means teaching, an interaction and teaching one another to grow as a team. So I'm going to go quickly across all this agenda because this is introductory. And if you want more information, I'll be happy to share references, because this is really important to move the field forward and to help the people and the families we work with. So what are some of the driving forces that are pushing the world, not just the US, the world, for a more interprofessional, collaborative approach? There are many. It's the drive towards more efficient, quality-driven, and cost-effective programming. This is very expensive. How can we do it more efficiently while we're providing quality? We can't do that alone as a single discipline. Another drive for an interprofessional collaborative model is that everyone needs to be on board, and the world is pushing for more measurable goals that are data-driven, that show that what you are doing is making a difference. Another drive is evidence-based practice, EBP. And evidence-based practice is bringing every discipline, professional discipline, bringing their empirical research literature from their own discipline, bringing their own clinical expertise together with an understanding and a respectful embracement of the culture of the family. So respecting family values and family decisions at the same time, which is extremely tricky. And then finally, the World Health Organization is really pushing not only the medical field, now the educational field, and any field that's working with people who need services, into a more collaborative model. So these are the drives. I'm going to bring it in now to autism. And I think we just briefly mentioned here, you mentioned a lot about autism. Well, we know the prevalence is moving high. I won't spend too much time on that, but it's important to note that the numbers are high. The numbers of the clients that we will be serving is increasing. We need to think globally. We need to think teaming. We can't think alone. Also, the diagnostic criteria from the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual 5, has revised the definition for the characteristics that are under the diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder to include two. One being impaired social communication and interests, which we all are familiar with. So it includes those individuals that have difficulties with communication, whether initiating or reciprocating, whether understanding and communicating shared thoughts and emotions. There's a breakdown in that domain. The second major domain is restrictive, repetitive interests, engagement in motor and vocal stereotypic behaviors, and sensory differences. And I stress on the word differences. It's important to understand those levels. Now, not only that, the two domains are major domains, but we all know that the children, the people we have in our families, all those affected by autism, have many other, what we call comorbid conditions. That means conditions that come along with autism spectrum disorder. It's not just one condition. Our children may come with several others. For instance, genetic comorbid conditions or other conditions that may come with ASD, like Fragile X syndrome. Biomarkers, different EEG, electrical encephalography results, brain waves, differences in biomarkers are associated with autism. Medical comorbidities are present. Many of our kids have issues with their gastrointestinal stomachs and allergies and other sleep disorders. Behavioral comorbidities. Many of our children with autism have other conditions like ADHD or obsessive compulsive disorder or hyperactivity. And to top it off, many have cognitive linguistic deficits, language deficits, cognitive delays, intellectual differences. And so it's not one thing, it's many things that are involved. So it just points to the fact that we are not one discipline to treat that. We would be not providing a comprehensive approach. We need to understand and respect and draw from other disciplines effective and evidence-based practices in our programming in a collaborative way. So who's involved? Everybody's involved. Everybody. So the parents at the center, of course, the teachers, the therapists, the physicians, the psychologists, the hairdresser, the bus driver, everybody in the community is involved. How do we do it though? How do we achieve it? How do we make it flow? How do we have everybody communicate in a seamless, easy way while keeping the family at the center and the clients at the center? Well, the World Health Organization in 2010 developed a framework that supports interprofessional education, or IPE, and interprofessional collaborative practice, or IPP. And so how do they define IPE? IPE is learning from, with, and about each other. And ideally, it starts in the education center, in the higher ed, in your education programs. ideally now in the United States, there's a strong, and in the world, not just in the US, in the world, there's a strong push to incorporate coursework from different disciplines so that you can learn from one another and understand the perspective from a theoretical perspective of the different disciplines, and to better have an idea of how to work together. So it starts there, but several programs are not there yet, so you might get it in your job position or in the community. But it's important to have it if you don't, and to seek it. And the second one is IPP, as I mentioned, which is interprofessional collaborative practice. And that's when multiple professions come together, they work with the patients, with the families and the caregivers to develop the highest quality care, of course. But how do they do it? The World Health Organization in 2016 revised its framework to make it more comprehensive and direct. And they call it Interprofessional Education Collaborative right now. So IPEC or IPEC. And IPEC, the framework, was developed by the medical community, nursing, dentistry, and other medical professions. Let me see if I can, okay, yep. And their focus is triple aimed. That means to improve the experience of care, which means, are you satisfied with how your care is delivered? Is that interaction satisfactory, acceptable? Health population improving the outcome. Has it been effective? Has progress happened? Is outcome better? Has it been generalized? And the last is reducing the cost per services. So the triple aim is really embedded in the World Health Organization's framework of IPEC. However, IPEC, in order to be successful, the World Health Organization has come up with 4 core competencies, and everyone in the world needs to be familiar with them. They started in the medical health professional field, but now it's moving in the education field. So the 4 core competencies that are necessary for interprofessional education collaborative model are values and ethics, roles and responsibilities, interprofessional communication, and teams and teamwork. So for values and ethics, I'm going to be going over them. For those who are board certified behavior analysts or are interested in, I have put in on the side the matching code of ethics. So it's in line with the behavior analyst codes of ethics and compliance. So the first core competency of IPEC is values and ethics, and it has 10 subcategories. And there is in my references, if you'd like, all of this available for you to go from in order to develop systems of collaboration. So values of ethics, we talk about it all the time. I need to be ethical in my behavior. I need to respect my colleagues, even if they have differences of opinion. I need to listen. I need to reciprocate in a manner that is ethical, and value cooperation and working together. The second one, the second core competency domain is roles and responsibilities. And that one has 10 subcompetencies as well. So what is required in this competency domain is that people on the team need to recognize that everyone has a role to play. More importantly, recognize that roles change amongst team members. At some point, you have more of a role here and less here, or different here, and at others, your role will shift depending on the need of the client and the family. So it will be very dynamic. So it's integrating the roles of one another together that is really tricky, but it's important to have those skill sets and that competency. The third one is interprofessional communication. I think this is really important because we all communicate. We are human beings. We rely on communication. This is what we do. And so we need to learn 8 sub-competencies of communication. We need to learn how to use a language that is respectful, that is shared. That means the words I use are understood by you. I'm trying really hard because maybe some words I'm using are not very familiar here in this audience, but that's okay. But it's important to maintain a language that is understood by all, and if there's a word that is used in your discipline, which is discipline specific, define it, clarify it, make it simple so that everyone is on board. Using communication comes in different ways. So you need, as a team, to agree on how to communicate via email, via text, writing, different ways, calling. So a team should agree on all of these aspects. And the 4th competency is teams and teamwork, which I think is one of the hardest thing to do. And that's what I'm going to be focusing a lot on. And it comes with 11 sub-competencies. So in essence, mainly, when we talk about the competency of teams and teamwork, it means that everyone on the team is responsible and accountable for what they are doing, not only alone as an individual person, but for the team. So it's a team shared problem solving. So it's very difficult, but it's important to solve problems as a team using ethical behavior, language that is understood, respectful values, and communication. So these are the 4 competencies that are part of the IPEC framework that was developed by the World Health Organization and has been revised in 2016 and is expected of healthcare professionals to follow in the world. However, we have different cultures. We come from different worlds. Not only do we have our own subculture, which is our human being learning experience, we have our family culture, we are expanding outside ourselves, and then we have our neighborhood culture, and then we have our work culture, and then we have our country's culture, many cultures. So we need to really understand what culture means. To define culture, it's defined by patterns of behavior, what we do, that are either encouraged or discouraged by people in our community, by processes and systems over time. So in your culture, whether it's your own personal, your family culture, your country, or your professional work environment culture, you're allowed to say certain things, you're allowed to behave differently, you're allowed to do things under one culture and not the other. So when we talk about collaboration, when we talk about teaming across different disciplines, we're talking about bringing cultures into one. And that is very tricky. And so we, as a team, if we decide to do that, which is a good idea for the betterment of the outcomes for the families and the children we serve, we, as a team, need to sit down and talk about how to develop a culture which is our team culture. Again, a subculture of your own cultures. Tricky, but there is a way to do this, okay? So this is a science. So the science that helps us do this in an organization, in a clinic, in a hospital, even in your group of people, friendship group, is called behavioral systems analysis. And behavioral systems analysis is what it really is. It's a system that is analyzed to define behaviors within a culture. And what the aim of behavior systems analysis in organizations, in educational settings, in healthcare settings and clinics is to improve team members' performance, the people we employ. It's to maintain that improvement really high, so figuring out how do we maintain that high once we get that high performance, and to keep the outcomes focused on the goals set. So behavioral systems analysis comes in 6 steps, and it moves on. It's very dynamic. And I'm going to very briefly go over the 6 steps in as much as I can simplify it, and if you're interested, let me know. It comes from the discipline of organization behavior management, OBM. So the first step, as part of a team organization in a clinic or educational system or any other organization, is to sit down and draft a vision and a mission. So you're analyzing what are those things in my environment that will affect the operation that I'm doing, the programming that I'm implementing. What are those that I need to have? What's my mission? How can I bring the 4 competencies from the World Health Organization into that mission and have it done? So that's the first step. As a team, you develop this mission and this vision, and you analyze all the conditions. The second step is input. So after you write your mission and your vision as a team, as part of your organization, you want to specify specific goals that you want to achieve. So how do you achieve teaming? How do you achieve roles and responsibilities? How do you achieve maintaining ethical behaviors? How do you achieve having a language that is cooperative, that is communicative? How do you achieve all these things? This is when you develop your programs as an organization. You develop a curriculum or materials that are in line with your competencies, that are in line with your vision and goal, that are in line, most importantly, towards collaboration. And that's what you do in this step. The third step is a process. So now that I have my mission and my vision, now that I wrote my curriculum, my program for my team to follow and to abide by, I'm going to design how to implement it, and I'm going to design how am I going to assess it that my team is working well. How can I develop data collection procedures and feedback measures that will give the team feedback that they're doing okay? What are those things that we need, that we all agree on, that are necessary to give us feedback and tell us how we can improve? What went wrong? What things we need to add and tweak? Now I heard from other speakers that feedback it's difficult to receive here in Turkey, and I'm not sure if it's correct, but I think it's not easy for anyone to receive feedback, okay? And it's something we learn that it's a good thing only and only if feedback is constructive, if feedback is given in a language that is respectful, if feedback gives you the opportunity to change and receive positive reinforcement, positive outcome that tells you, yes, feedback works. Otherwise, feedback can be really aversive. So here we're talking about this constructive performance feedback, and it's necessary to embed those core competencies in that feedback loop. The fourth is output or receiving system. That means now all members need to receive some training of some sort. What training opportunities are these team members going to have in order to support the goals and your mission? What can I do to have everyone be on board, excited, to want to be working together, to learning from one another, to still having some competition, but it's a positive and healthy competitive aspect, but mostly to focus on the families and the students and to program for that cohesively. The fifth step is feedback. So you did this, you receive performance feedback, you evaluate your team, and you go, you know, the team is working, no, it's not working, and you tweak it, you make changes. So you evaluate the team, and guess what? You continuously recycle. This is not something that is done and left on a shelf. This is something that is revised. This is something you do over and over to become better as an organization, as a member, as a therapist, as a teacher, as a parent. This is very important to recycle. So now that we are in the culture, we talked about briefly behavioral systems analysis and its application on the organization, so the culture of the organization. Now, how do we translate that on a team approach when you're all working with your student and you want to do it? Well, there is an evidence-based problem-solving framework that is based on the science of behavior analysis that has been shown to be very effective in the education system, building bridges between parents and teachers, and it's called Conjoint Behavioral Consultation, or CBC. And what CBC does is it brings the unit, the family system, the educational system, and all other support systems together. And it has steps to follow. So I mentioned what conjoint behavioral consultation is. Let me move forward towards the 4 stages to apply it. And it can be applied, I guarantee you. Not only the research is in support, but I have implemented it in my team, and I have seen positive outcome, not only in the members of the team who want more collaboration, more learning from one another, but more importantly, they want all this because they saw that their student, the child they're working with, the adult, the young adult, improved. And the families were partners. And the families and the parents felt empowered and wanted more of it because they saw that they could make a change, a positive change in the lives of their own child. So it's very powerful. The first step is needs identification. The second is needs analysis, plan implementation, and plan evaluation. Much like BSA for organization, it's 4 steps for the implementation of programs and therapy interventions as a team. Needs identification. This is the step where the team from different disciplines comes together and together assess the child. Each discipline, each professional brings their own assessments, their own research behind their assessments, and they together review their outcome. And then we move to the needs analysis where together they determine a goal or the goals to be implemented and what parts of the skills that are needed from the different disciplines are selected and then incorporated so that the child can experience a complete program that is functional, that can be done in school, in the community, at home, in every setting. So developing evidence-based strategies is at the center of this program. Then there's a plan implementation stage where, as a team, the team members all agree on the data collection procedure. It is so important that everyone's on board on what to collect, how to collect the data, because the data is going to reflect and be reflective of the intervention that you are preparing and implementing. So fidelity is very important, of course, because whatever every member is implementing needs to be implemented in a way that it's intended to be done, the way it needs to be done. So it's written in objective ways, in objective measures, descriptive and clear to all. So again, all these measures are done jointly. Not one discipline decides, everyone agrees so that they all are comfortable, they receive the training, and they can do it. Then there's plan evaluation. Again, evaluation is so critical. Without a performance feedback or an evaluation process, we cannot know what to do next, whether to make changes to have better programs, a better goal, a better teaching procedure, to know whether we need to change the prompting strategies, we need to adjust the skill set, the skill level, all of that is done under feedback. And the graphical display of the data is highly critically important, because when we look at the lines, which we call data trends, and we look at the data trends on the graph to see progress, to see development, that data trend will tell us if performance is on an uphill, doing well, trend analysis, that's what it's called, or whether, we need to make a change, it's really dropping, something's bad, or it's so variable, something else is interfering in our teaching procedure. Maybe it's motivation, maybe it's something else, we need to do something about it. So feedback analysis is highly important. So these are the 4 stages, and this is not an easy thing to do, but it's well worth. However, we're faced with barriers all around, every day in our lives. That doesn't mean we give in and we just say, too difficult. I have no time. I can't do this. This is too difficult. We can't do this because we're harming the families and the children we work with, and we're not growing as professionals. So we need to face the barriers and learn how to problem solve. So overcoming barriers, we have many of them. Differences in opinions is simple. We're going to face those. How do we solve problems? We go back to the core competencies. Financial issues, we can't afford to do this. Well, how do we find funding? How do we reduce it without making a difference or affecting the outcome? Professional ideas, differences. Clinical skills, how do we know that we're using research, evidence-based research? We need to gather that. Workplace culture, I go back to culture. Very important to identify it and make it strong towards teams. So these are barriers. However, if we have an understanding of how to create systems and creating a culture of teaming, plus we build partnerships by following an evidence-based, science-based approach, we can achieve effective outcome and solve problems together. And that is important. Why? Because not only will we have positive program systems outcome, but we will build partnerships with our colleagues, with the community, with our parents and families, and we will lead and we will have effective, positive, functional outcome in the students, the children, the learners that we work with. And that is really what we do in our fields. We want that. So we need to think about how to get it in the best way and comprehensive way. So finally, I leave you with this. Coming together is the beginning, so we need to make that step. Keeping together is progress, because you're making a change in your own behavior and willing to put your foot forward and say, I want to invest my time, my energy, and my efforts for this team approach. And working together is success, because there's no other way. We need to work together. So I hope that I've inspired you, and I think I'm very honored to be amongst colleagues here in this audience from different disciplines, and I want to learn from all of you, and I've already learned so much. Thank you very much.